put a timeline on the Treaty Principles Bill in Cabinet yesterday?
Yeah, we expect that it'll be in Parliament by November.
And what about a timeline on the Select Committee?
Well, again, it'll be a standard length select committee, so that takes you through to sometime around next May.
So you have agreed on doing a full Select Committee process?
Well, again, yes, we have, but I'm not going to go into each and every detail because I'm supposed to keep Cabinet proceedings confidential.
You just told us.
Well, I've just told you a couple of things in broad outline, but I'm just warning you that I'm not going to answer every single question.
And you've made concessions around Principle 2?
We've made improvements around how it's presented, I think would be a fair way to put it.
Meaning?
Well, once again, as I was saying, I'm not going to go through every single detail, but what we have got is a direction on how it's going to be drafted. The people who draft these things will do that work, and then as soon as possible we'll present the exact detail of the bill.
But hapu and iwi will be spelled out in
Beg your pardon?
But hapu and iwi will be spelled out.
We certainly intend to mention hapu and iwi. There's been some people who have looked at previous versions that have been in the public domain and said we don't like that. I believe that saying that all New Zealanders have certain rights is actually inclusive and makes the rights stronger for everybody. But if people want explicit mention, then that could be seen as a strengthening and an improvement we intend to make.
In the past,
So it'll be all New Zealanders, including hapu and iwi, rather than iwi and hapu?
Well, again, I'm not going to get into exactly what the wording is. That's the job of the drafters. But you catch the drift of where we're going with this.
In the past, you've talked about distributing a draft exposure bill potentially. Is that still going to happen?
Yeah, we certainly hope so. It'll depend somewhat on the length of time that the drafting takes. So that is, a work in progress. But the intention is to get it in the House by November and back from Select Committee in May.
Was there any debate around having a shorter Select Committee process?
Look, there's been lots of discussion about possible timelines. I think the important thing is the coalition agreement says as soon as practicable, and so we're making sure that we do a fulsome process, treat the process, the parliament, the legislation with respect and dignity that it deserves, but also fulfil that requirement of doing it as soon as practicable.
Did the National Party want to get it wrapped by Waitangi next year?
Look, they may have wanted to do it then, they may have wanted to do it another time. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details of every discussion.
Do you think not having a draft exposure bill would help or hinder, I suppose, the national conversation about it?
Well, I think the ultimate exposure is seeing the bill debated in the public domain coming before the Select Committee. You could argue that there should be other parts of that procedure, but ultimately what you're going to see is for the first time the idea that we all actually have a say in what our founding document means. There's never been a process like that. We've always done this on the basis of it's a judicial or tribunal type process.
On supermarkets, the Prime Minister's come out in favour of stronger regulation. Is that an argument you're going to lose?
Well, it's not an argument that we're having because there's been nothing put before Cabinet and the government doesn't have any policies. But what I would point you to is Andrew Bailey, the Commerce Minister's press release, which says that there needs to be a reduction in red tape and more competition as a result. What the government's doing is reducing restrictions on overseas investment, making good progress there. We're rewriting the resource management law so it's easier to develop stuff. If people want to put more regulations on, then that's something that could come before Cabinet. But by and large, we're deregulating.
Do you think there should be a third supermarket? Andrew Bailey's made it clear he thinks we should have one.
Oh, look, I was saying before the election, if it was my job, the first thing I'd do is ask some global supermarket chains, hey, why haven't you invested in New Zealand yet? Get the list of reasons and start ticking them off. I think it would be great to have more competition, but to an extent we have that. I think Costco's making an effort for people, especially in the west of Auckland. I think having things like Whāro Fresh in a certain segment of the market helps, and you see some of the Asian supermarkets that are dotted around Auckland, so you're actually seeing quite a bit of competition when you really think about it.
When your views were put to Christopher Luxon yesterday, he said, last I checked, Andrew Bailey was the Commerce Minister. Do you take disrespect from that?
No, I mean, what he's saying is true, but here's something else that's true, is that we've got a coalition founded on principled decision-making, including problem definition and cost-benefit analysis and sound public policy, and that's the real test that all ideas have to go through.
Andrew Bailey thinks supermarkets are living hands off. Do you think supermarkets are doing that?
Look, I think what really matters to a government is getting good policies. I don't think it matters what I think about that, because I could say they are, I could say they're not, and you could find reasons to say either thing. The government's responsibility is good rules, good infrastructure, enabling people to come and invest and start businesses, build distribution centres and supermarkets, get the stuff off the wharf with better infrastructure there. that's the actual problem-solving approach. Simply beating up on a sector of people, saying that it's all bad, that doesn't actually make groceries cheaper.
Would you
Cheaper, sorry.
support price regulation at a wholesale level? There's talk about setting some price rules at a wholesale level. Is that something you could support?
No, I mean, price regulations never work because it's impossible for a small number of people to know what the right price is for something as diverse as fast-moving consumer goods that are sold in supermarkets. I mean, it's not just the price of a good, it's what's the batch size, is it something that's refrigerated, how soon do you want it? Trying to work out what the right price is very challenging to do. Are you right there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Have you received?
Sorry, yes.
May I ask, in regards to the Treaty Principles Bill, was it a deal breaker? Would you have not formed the coalition government if the other parties didn't agree to doing the Treaty Principles Bill?
Well, we always negotiate with all possibilities on the table because we want to get the best deal for New Zealand. Yes, it was very important for us. Actually, it never came to that. So,
Have you received any assurance from buy now, pay later providers that your decision to remove default fee regulations are going to what that's going to do to their default fees?
well, certainly in the communications I've had with them, they've said our business model is innovative, it leads to less bad debt, but we need to have default fees that we're free to set ourselves. And not regulating that, I think, is a sensible approach, and I look forward to the government taking that approach.
Did they say to you, though, we are not going to lift these to levels that will, put people into debt spirals and really harm consumers? Did they give you that reassurance?
Well, I think the thing about a debt spiral is that their model is that they're a one-off entity. So you buy one small thing, and if you pay it back, then they'll let you do another one and then another one. I think the point of their model is that you can't continue to borrow without having paid back the previous one, and therefore you don't get into debt spirals.
Can we expect those default fees to rise because you've taken away the regulations?
Well, I think the point is the government's no longer setting the default fee, so it's going to be set by what they believe their customers are prepared to pay and what they believe can cover their costs for their other customers. That's not something I think a politician can decide.
Was it a bottom line for ACT during the cabinet process to have a 6-month-long select committee?
Well, again, you asked me to go into detail of cabinet, and I'm not going to do that just because no politician ever has.
No.
Um,
I'm not asking about the cabinet decision. I'm asking about ACT's position on a 6-month
Well,
selection process.
obviously, we think it's very important. I tend not to talk about bottom lines. I talk about priorities, making sure that people get a real say on the Treaty Principles Bill through a proper length select committee. That's really important to me.
Was it something that you would have thrown your toys over?
Well, me, never.
As your
On the concession, that's quite a departure, that sort of specific reference to that's quite a departure from the position around not singling people out due to race. Does that mean that you accept Māori have a special relationship with the Crown?
No, it accepts that hapu and iwi, not all Māori, but specific hapu and iwi, had existing property rights on February the 6th, 1840. It's a matter of specific facts rather than a categorisation of people.
Do you accept then that Māori will, if this is legislated into law, which it doesn't seem to be, but if it is,
Give it time.
if it does, do you accept that Māori will then use that through the courts to show that they had those special property rights?
Well, I think the way that it will be worded is, first of all, yet to be determined, but I think that you'll see that it's actually really consistent with a liberal democratic society where each person flourish in self-chosen ways. That's all we've ever wanted and what we're standing up for.
Has your private and public disagreement over the Treaty Principles Bill changed between yourself and the Prime Minister, changed the relationship between the pair of you at all?
No. I mean, from 10 years ago when we were neighbours on Manawa Road, Remuera, to today, we've always had a really strong relationship at a personal level. We disagree on things, that's why we're in different parties.
Have you asked for a commitment that the bill go to a second reading?
Beg your pardon?
Have you asked for a commitment that the bill goes to a second reading, i.e. doesn't just get carried to select committee?
Well, what I've said, publicly and privately is let's see the bill, see what it says, see how people respond to it, and keep our options open. Now, there's other people who say that they don't want to take that approach, but that's my advice.
But you don't have it written into your coalition agreement that there will be a second reading. So have you been given that assurance by the Prime Minister?
Well, no, and you can imagine that different parties might have different views on whether they want there to be one or not, depending on how people respond to it.
Are you implying that the National Party might not put it to a second reading so that they don't have to publicly vote it down
Well, I think that's one of the logical possibilities. I'm not saying that's more or less likely. It's just you step through. There's only so many ways it can go.
But have you requested that it go to second reading and National have said no?
No, I haven't made that request, and they haven't said no either.
Do you think it should?
You'd prefer for it to not go to second reading though, wouldn't you? So then it sits there on the order paper, it could be pulled up.
People get into these political games. What I think is it's important that every New Zealander who lives under the laws of this country can have a say about its constitutional settings. That's what we're delivering, one step at a time. Well, I didn't feel the need to intervene. I just have a role as the Minister of Regulation to uphold good policy making. I think when you make a policy, you've got to have a really clear reason for doing it, and the benefits have to outweigh the costs. In fact, that's one of the principles of decision making in this coalition.
Was it ever brought up with you to have a short selection committee process?
Look, there's been so many conversations over the last year, probably, but you know, where we've got to now is where we've got to.
So they considered having a short selection committee process.
Well, just about every possible option's been discussed at some point, so I wouldn't say we haven't, but I can't recall if we did. I'm sorry.
You've talked about agreeing in principle to having a 6-month long process. Has the door been left open to extend that if there are substantive number of public submissions, or has National said absolutely not?
Well, the agreement that we've made as a government is to do it over 6 months. That's the government policy.
Did any ACT Party ministers get to negotiate chief to chief with the Prime Minister over the public service savings exercise?
Not that I'm aware of.
So Winston Peters did get special treatment?
Well, I'm not aware of the exact details of that. If he did, then good on him. But I'd just point out that this government, the only special treatment I ask for is saving more money for the taxpayer. I'm an unusual lobbyist in that sense. I go to the budget meetings asking how we can spend less because I know that debt's too high, inflation's too high, and taxes are too high.
One coalition partner got one-on-ones with the Prime Minister, and one coalition partner didn't.
No.
Special treatment?
No, I think that's mischievous reporting.
Did you have any one-on-ones about your Ministry for Regulation?
I don't recall I did, actually. We're just very professional and smooth sailing. You guys are very speculative. Anyway, I think that's enough questions. We'll catch you later.